Hey everyone, and welcome. So, if you're an architect working in Azure, you already know how incredibly powerful its observability tools are. But you probably also know that sinking feeling when you look at the bill and see those costs just creeping up and up and up. Today, we're going to dive into exactly how you can get super smart and effective with your Azure observability without completely destroying your budget.
Okay, let's just jump right in with a question that I'm willing to bet hits pretty close to home for a lot of you. Go ahead, think about your last Azure bill. Is your observation platform, the very thing that's supposed to give you clarity and peace of mind, actually eating your budget alive?
If that sounds familiar, well, you're not alone. You're caught in what I call the observability paradox. We're all told to just collect everything, right? That more data is always better. But the reality is, we end up drowning in this sea of information, struggling to find the important signals. And all we really have to show for it is a much, much bigger bill. It's a classic trap.
So how in the world did we get here? Well, to solve this problem, we've got to identify the culprits first. So let's get into our first section and meet the three main things that are absolutely killing your budget.
First up, the most common offender by a long shot, overly verbose logs. You know how it is. We just flip the switch to collect all from our apps and services, and bam, we are suddenly ingesting mountains and mountains of data into log analytics. But here's the thing, and it's so important. Not all logs are created equal. Not even close.
This quote from a senior SRA I used to work with, man, it just hits the nail on the head. Just think about that for a second. Terabytes of info level logs, just sitting there, racking up costs every single month without ever once being used to solve a single production issue. It is pure, unadulterated waste.
All right, next on our hit list is something that is tricky because it often starts with the best intentions. Excessive custom metrics. We get excited, we want to measure everything, so we start creating a custom metric for every little detail. The problem is, every single one of those adds to the cost, and a whole lot of them don't actually help us understand the health of our system any better.
And that brings us to our final, and honestly, most insidious budget killer. This is the one that can cause your costs to just explode, almost exponentially. It's called high cardinality dimensions. Now, this one's a little more technical, but I promise you, it is absolutely critical for any architect to understand.
So what on earth is cardinality? Well, to put it simply, it's just the number of unique values for a dimension on your metric. So think about a dimension like environment. You probably have dev, test, and prod. That's low cardinality, only 3 unique values. But what if you use user ID or request ID as a dimension? You could have millions, even billions of unique values. Each one of those creates a brand new time series that you have to store, and your costs just go through the absolute roof. Okay, so we've seen the problems. And I know it might sound a bit grim, but here's the good news. There is a much, much better way to do this. So let's move on to section 2 and talk about that big aha moment. Making the shift to a lean observability mindset. This is the key right here. The goal is not less observability. We're not trying to fly blind. The goal is smarter observability. It's all about being intentional. Instead of just collecting every single thing by default, we need to focus our efforts on finding the valuable signals buried inside all of that noise. And how do we actually do that? Well, we have 3 main levers we can pull to get control back. We can get aggressive with data sampling, so we're not ingesting every single request trace. We can right-size our retention policies, because why are we paying to store low-value data for years? And, like we just talked about, we can architect smarter, low-cardinality metrics right from the start. Now, this all sounds great in theory, but you're probably wondering, does it really work in practice? And the answer is a resounding yes, absolutely. Let's take a look at a quick case study that shows how this lean philosophy delivers real-world results that are both better and cheaper. So, on a project I was on recently, the before state was, well, it was pretty typical. The costs were high, they were unpredictable, and the strategy was just collect everything. And the result? When things broke, it was slow to fix because our engineers were buried in noise. The after state, where we focused only on critical signals, completely changed the game. And this chart really just tells the whole story, doesn't it? The before state shows these towering bars for monthly cost and mean time to resolution, or MTTR. After we implemented the lean strategy, look at that. Both of them just plummeted. Let's put some real numbers to that. First, here's the number your finance department is going to love. A 50% reduction in the monthly observability spend. Just by tuning data ingestion and retention, we cut the bill in half.
That is a huge, tangible saving.
But honestly, this is the part that I think is even more important. By focusing on the right signals, we cut our mean time to resolution by 2/3. See, this was never just about saving money. Our engineers were actually fixing problems faster because they weren't wasting time digging through useless data. That is the real win, a more reliable system for less money.
So, how can you get these same results? Let's wrap this all up with the final section, a clear, actionable checklist that you can take back to your team, like today. These are the 5 lean rules for Azure Observability. Here we go. Number 1, be frugal. Treat every single log and every single metric like it's a real expense coming out of your budget. 2, sample first. Make collecting 100% of the data the exception, not the rule. You should have to justify it. 3, mind that cardinality. Make it a primary design constraint from day 1. 4, tier your data. Not all data is equally valuable, so don't treat it that way. Be aggressive with your retention policies. And finally, number 5, focus on impact. Measure what actually matters to the business, not just system trivia. And that brings us to the end. I just want to leave you with one final thought, one question to take with you. After everything we've talked about today, what's the first noisy data source in your system that you're going to go and tune? Start there. Just pick one thing. Apply these lean rules, and I promise you'll be well on your way to a smarter, more cost-effective observability practice in Azure. Thanks so much for tuning in.